You are listening to the Wannabe Collective, your new variety podcast featuring every fandom that you could possibly think of. On the Wannabe Collective, all wannabes are welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Keeping It Real from Wannabe Critic Productions. I'm one of your hosts, Gabriel Fast, and joining me is a full virtual table of fellow wannabes. We have Ethan Maestri, Ryan Dalton, Caleb Henley, and Rex Tucker. Tonight we're going to be reviewing, as our main topic, we're going to be reviewing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, if you can call it that. But before we get into it, we are going to go around the room, talk about what we went up to, and, that old chestnut. So, Ethan, we're going to start with you tonight. What's been up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. As far as what I've been up to, I've been continuing to ride the Star Wars wave, with the release of Book of Boba Fett. As of the time of this recording, we've just watched episode 4. I won't go into spoilers, but it's all coming together and I'm jazzed over it. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about this series once it's wrapped up, because I feel like it's now going to the places that we kind of wanted it to go. And the opening of it kind of, this isn't what we were expecting, but all the pieces are in place. And now we're starting to see how they're shifting on the table, and it's exciting. And so I'm all jazzed about that. And that has filtered out into, of course, I've talked about it before on here. Tabletop gaming is still, trying to make that happen as much as possible. I've got a friend coming over. He actually built me a gaming tabletop that I can put over the top of my dinner table that actually allows a 3x3 play space for those games that I've talked about. So I'm excited about getting together with him in the coming weeks and rolling some dice and playing video, going back to the old LucasArts archive and playing some old Star Wars games. And yeah, man, I'm riding that Star Wars wave right now, and I'm just ready to talk about how much I love Star Wars, except you asked me to come on tonight, so we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's funny to hear you talk about that, because my love of Star Wars, thank God for Boba Fett, honestly. Because I'm that's all I can think about, it's in terms of entertainment. So I'm excited that you're excited, and we can finally agree on Star Wars. There's balance in the Force, Ethan. Ryan, let's shift it over to you. How have you been?
Good, yeah. On the gaming front, I haven't been doing anything super deep. I tried to start a replay of Fallen Order and realized I don't like Fallen Order. so
Oh
I turned it off and deleted it.
It's really funny you mentioned that, because me and Caleb, we actually just recorded our review of Jedi Fallen Order, and I think we might even do a follow-up with a full group, but it was one of those things, I wanted to have that core review out, and I forced myself to play it. And that was my biggest takeaway from that game was 3 or 4 hours into it, I was it really took this long for me to start liking this game. But once I got to that point and playing it on easy, I was okay, this is pretty cool. But still, on a game, as a casual gamer, it's really hard to get to that point. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Ryan. I know you're a lot of times a real story critic. So I'm curious, what is it about Fallen Order that you don't like? Is it the story, or is it the gameplay, or what is it?
I didn't mind the story at all.
Okay.
I don't like how it plays. My first playthrough, and I did finish it, and I'll say this, look, I don't hate the game. There are things in my first playthrough that I genuinely enjoyed, but when I started a replay, I'm not kidding. I spent 15 minutes on it. And then in those 15 minutes, I encountered all the things that I did hate about it. And I was it's not worth playing through all the things I hated to get to the things I liked. I hate the traversal. I hate the combat. I hate how weak you are. I hate how it's a Dark Souls clone. I hate how the game plays, while enjoying how it looks, and the story's not bad, but I hate how it plays. And I was getting a combination of annoyed and bored. And I thought, all right, this game is done. So I quit and deleted it. So it is, I'd rather go back and play The Force Unleashed. That is a far superior game. Anyway, so that's been as far as I've gotten with gaming recently. I've been super busy with promo for my book, which comes out very soon, less than 2 weeks now, I think. So I've been promoting that. Got my virtual launch event set up for February 1st. And then in the weeks and few months after that, periodically I'll be taking some trips around to some different cities to hit up bookstores and things, and so ramping up for that. And also after the book is out and things settle down a little bit, I start writing my next book. So a lot of fun stuff to look forward to.
You're a busy man. And
I'm a busy man.
You're a busy man. I'm looking forward to that book. Mine's supposed to come Friday, which is kind of weird since it's not supposed to be out for another 2 weeks. But
a lot of times, if you pre-order something, you end up getting it a little bit early, which is cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to read like I never read. So, Caleb, I feel like you wanted to add something to Ryan's analysis of Jedi Fallen Order.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Like,
Me?
it was like, as he was talking, you were just kind of like...
Yeah, no, I'll say, like, I can't fault Ryan at all for any of that analysis, because, like, while I probably don't hate it to the same degree as him, those are all kind of my least favorite parts of the game, too. I love the story of Fallen Order, and I do think that after, like, playing it for a while, it's okay, but I can't stand Dark Souls style combat, and I'm not any good at it either, so... Yeah, I can't fault him for that at all. It's yeah, it's funny. I was gonna be really interested though if you just didn't like the story, because I actually really like the story the way that it all plays out. Okay.
Yeah, story didn't bother me at all. I thought it was perfectly serviceable for a game.
Yeah, I thought it was really good Star Wars too. Like, the story was what made me want to finish it. Cal Kestis is really an endearing character, but it's funny hearing you talk about that, because that was like literally everything we talked about in our review. It was like, yeah, literally all of those things hold that game back from being perfect. So, it's a shame, but it's a good game, I think, for the right person. Caleb, while we're with you, how have you been? What's been new with you?
Not a whole lot, man. Same old watching football. We're in the playoffs, and that's been fun. That's been kind of consuming my weekends, but I was kind of already consuming my weekends all fall long. But yeah, that's basically it. Nothing too new or crazy or exciting.
All right. Pretty straightforward. And now we have the Soulsborne expert himself, Rex Tucker. Rex loves Dark Souls. Have you beaten Jedi Fallen Order?
No, I haven't even played it.
What the heck?
Oh, no, wait. I did play it for like a little bit, like maybe 30 minutes.
But let me guess, it was too easy for you.
No, it was actually pretty hard. I was trying to kill like some frog that was like in a cave or something for my sister. She was having trouble with it, and it was pretty tough.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard game. I had to play it on easy because I'm a chump. What's been new with you though? How have things been going?
I don't even know where to start. It's been a while. So, I mean, I got a new puppy. I went on vacation. So much. NFTs is a big keyword with my new job and stuff. And but as far as video game wise, pretty much Halo. A little bit of what's it called, Age of Empires, but
definitive or like an older Age of Empires?
The new one.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I kind of got burnt out on Halo just because it is so sweaty. Like, it just became unfun for me. Like, at least for right now, I just don't really have a desire to like play it right now. And
yeah,
it's a great game, but there's just a lot that I would rather do in it besides multiplayer that isn't available currently. So
yeah, it's kind of lacking in a lot of content right now. But
yeah, it's called not being done.
Yeah,
like,
but I have a good squad and we just play together. I don't really like to play on my own that much.
Yeah.
Unless it's just to like do a few challenges. But...
We did play a few matches together, and it was on a map that I hadn't been on yet. And then I proceeded to yeet us right off of a cliff.
Yeah, right
by
when we
accident.
get in the Warthog, we just go right off the cliff.
And you just like sent me like 3 question marks whenever that happened because I didn't have my mic on. So like I yeeted us with a full squad in our Warthog. And I was like, whoops. And Rex just goes, because we were in, a party with other people, he just sends question marks. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, but that's, you're a busy man too.
Yeah, I've been really busy lately with the new job and just taking up some things, doing some light programming, learning some JavaScript, that sort of stuff. Just lots going on right now. But Halo's been pretty fun, especially in a team setting. But to me, that's the only way to play it right now, especially.
Yeah, I hear you.
The one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
The one thing that is totally done about Halo, the storefront. So if you want to, spend $20 on a helmet, they're more than happy to build that for you.
Yeah.
The way they're going with that is it's whatever. It's not the best, but I don't hate it. It's kind of like the Rocket League kind of format, but the only difference is you don't get as much cool stuff right now. So it needs to be fleshed out a bit more, because it's not as rewarding right now unless you're playing a lot of hours.
And if you're willing to jump into every single event they're having, I don't want to do the attrition event that you can, the only way to get a specific set of armor is to do this event. And I don't want to do that though. There are easier ways to get me to play your game. It's called have plenty of stuff to do and plenty of maps, because right now you don't have that. So
yeah, and the challenges are really awkward. The way they do them with the event, it's really weird.
It's definitely still in beta, is all I'll say. They came out and said it was in beta for a reason. I don't think it's in any danger of leaving beta anytime soon. So,
but one of the most important things for me is the feel of the game and the gameplay, and it's there with that aspect.
That's true.
I think it's definitely super close. For me, my biggest gripe is whenever you go up to someone, you're gonna trade melees with somebody. I miss those so often when I know I hit it. I'm like, wait a minute, I hit you for sure. I hit you. Or my favorite is whenever you're totally have 6 or 7 shots on a guy, and he can just melee you and hit you one time and kill you. I'm like, I shot you 5 times, dude. What the heck? So it's just, I think it's almost there. There's just a couple of things I think they need to fine tune. It's going to be a really good game. So, but
yeah, I agree. I'm trying to grind to Onyx. It's been pretty tough.
Yeah, ranked is something else. But you're kind of making me want to play now that you're giving us an update on what you've been doing. So it's good to hear that everyone's been so active doing what they're doing. I've been playing a lot of games. There's this show we do. You might have heard of it. It's called Punch Counter Punch. And it's one show that me and Ethan Maestri do. Ethan's here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He decided to grace us with his presence. And I made him a bet that if I can beat 50 games this year, he has to do 2 episodes of Punch Counter Punch every month, bi-weekly. That's the deal. So I'm happy to report I'm 7 games in now, and I am incredibly burnt out already. So
can it be any game?
I think we didn't say specifically. I'm going to be focusing mostly on games in my backlog. What Ethan didn't know is I have 20 shooters I have to beat. So, that was, but then I have another 20 games to beat on top of it. But there's some good games coming out this year. You have Horizon Forbidden West. You have Elden Ring. You have Breath of the Wild 2. You have some good ones. There's going to be plenty of games for me to beat this year. Plus, we have a slew of Game Club games to finish. So
my hope is you find one of those games. It's I need to spend more time in this, and then you just get sidetracked.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's I have tunnel vision.
Something like that.
I have tunnel vision on this project. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have to beat every Souls game. Yeah, no. But we have a lot of stuff coming out. Definitely check out. We have the Wannabe Critic podcast has returned. It's a weekly show. We're covering Book of Boba Fett right now. Having a lot of fun doing that. There's plenty of content we're releasing. I'm hard at work on our Star Wars RPG podcast that we're doing. It's really coming together. I'm really enjoying working on it, and there's going to be so many people that play D&D and RPGs in general that are going to listen to this podcast and be like, this guy's an idiot. And that's exactly what we want. We just do. I'm roll a D20. It's I rolled a 5, and I'm I guess you hit him. You hit him. It's fine. So good times. There's a lot of Rex.
I
is
wonder
like,
how much hate you're gonna get for that.
Well, the thing is, people have to listen to it first. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping the casual listener will just think it's entertaining and fun to listen to because it is pretty funny. But that's enough of what we've been up to. No one cares. Let's get into our main topic of tonight, gentlemen, which is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I have to ask a question. When is the last time, because I know sometimes we can't always get to the content that we're going to cover. You know, we can't always get to the movie or whatever, or at least watch the entire thing or whatever. When's the last time y'all watched this movie? Caleb, when was it for you?
So I watched it last week. So because I thought we were going to be recording this last Thursday. So it's been, pretty recent for me.
Rex?
Wait, you mean like before this, right? Before this podcast?
Yeah, before this podcast. When's the last time you watched the movie?
So I feel like that doesn't count, Caleb.
Oh, does that not count?
Of course it
No,
does.
because you watched it for the podcast.
No, I mean, yeah, like when's the last time you viewed the movie in general? It doesn't like.
Well, wait a second. Can we rephrase this question? Because I think Rex is onto something. I think the better question is, when's the last time you watched this movie like for fun, not for the podcast?
Oh.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
What was your last casual experience?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, I like that question.
So I'll go again then. I watched The Rise of Skywalker for fun of my own doing after watching let's see, I finished watching season 7 of the Clone Wars. And I was so hyped on Star Wars because I love the way that the Clone Wars ended, that I just wanted to jump right back into something again. So I jumped into Rise of Skywalker for some reason, and
You hyper skipped right into that one, huh?
I did. I hyper jumped right into it, and it was quite a. It's incredible how much of a difference in quality there can be between an animated show for children and a blockbuster movie, but it was pretty jarring.
Hey, pick up your mic and drop it right there because that's a bold and accurate statement.
We're light speed skipping. Oh, I'm like, who are you and why are you driving my ship, sir? Is kind of what I was thinking. Rex, when's the last time you watched this movie for fun?
Yeah, for me, it was just in the movie theater. So, like, right when it came out, went to see it and walked out with my head hanging pretty low.
Ryan?
I don't know if I ever watched this movie for fun. I watched it kind of in chunks when it first came out on Disney Plus, and that was the first and last time.
So you didn't even go to the theater.
I refused to give that movie like any extra money. The only money I would spend is on what I was already spending on Disney Plus. I did the same thing with The Last Jedi.
Good choice.
Yeah, I just have a question. So is that because you didn't enjoy The Force Awakens? You just didn't enjoy the way that it was going from there? I mean, if you did that for 2 movies, that's
it's because 2 out of the 3 prequels were trash, and Rogue One was trash, and I didn't bother with Solo, and I hated The Force Awakens, and I thought, I feel like a battered spouse here that just keeps coming back thinking they're going to change. So I
man.
And so I said, you know what? So I said, you know what? I'm not giving them any more money until they earn it. And so that's why I didn't go to the theater for either one of those, and I never regretted it, like not once.
I just want to take a step back to the word scramble that Ryan gave us there a little bit earlier, that he watched Rise of Skywalker in chunks. And I just feel like something needs to be done there with, he can only watch Rise of Skywalker until he feels the chunks rise, and then he has to stop.
It was literally like, I can only stand so much. It was like I had a radiation meter, and it was like, all right, I got to leave Chernobyl for a little bit, and then I'll come back and, for a little more and, finally get through it.
Ryan, there's holes inside of you. Shut up. Like, oh God. I honestly, you said something. I don't think Rogue One is trash, but I don't love Rogue One. And it makes me happy finally. And whenever I tell people like I don't like Rogue One, like their response is usually like, like how dare I? Because that's like the closest feeling to the OG trilogy, and I don't know. There's just something. There's always been something off about it for me.
And I can understand those people because of the stuff done in the recent years. It's probably the best one as far as the movies go. It doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's not as bad.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I remember going to the theater to watch Rogue One and being like really bored. Go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, maybe this is just going way offline, but I'm just curious. So at this point, like on Ryan's movie scales, I feel like there's way more of the movies because there's 11 movies, and according to Ryan, there's only 4 of them that are good. I'm assuming it's Revenge of the Sith and the original trilogy. So
that's correct.
So does that mean that like as Star Wars as a whole that you don't enjoy it? Because that means that 7 of the 11 movies you don't like.
Yep, that's true.
Okay.
How many books do you like?
That was very inquisitive, Caleb. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for. That's going to get us. If there was an award show for podcasting, we would be nominated because of your inquisitive nature. Sorry.
Excuse me. There are plenty of to answer your question, Rex. There are a number of books that I really enjoyed. There are a number of games that I really enjoyed. So those largely, I mean, from my generation, novels and games largely carried the torch for Star Wars. So there was a lot that I loved until other new stuff started coming out.
I'm right there with Ryan on that, because I came up at a time when we didn't have TV showing Star Wars. We didn't have animated series. We didn't have movies coming out every couple of years. And it existed here in your mind. And so whatever you read on the page, that was how you furthered your time in that universe. And so it alters your perception of it. And ultimately it makes you a lot more protective of what was to come. So when they started announcing movies and television, on the one hand, you're like, great, there's more content, but there's a lot back there that was really good. And if you're being told that that's now, legends and is going to be superseded by something else, it kind of makes the hackles stand up on you.
And I have extra kind of fond memories of some of those books, because some of those books were written by authors that I now am either acquainted with or I'm actually friends with. So that adds kind of an extra layer of loving those books for me. It was disheartening for people of our generation to grow up with such great stuff, and then to have like kind of the spigot turned back on, but all the stuff that comes trickling out is progressively worse. And it was like watching a friend waste away in front of someone that you grew up with. It was very discouraging.
Ryan sent me a text. I'm gonna read our conversation.
I should preface this. I texted Gabe and I said, "Do you really want me on this episode?"
Yeah.
So go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I'm gonna read verbatim what you said because I loved it. If I can pull up your freaking contact. Okay. So he says, I'll leave it up to you whether I attend the Thursday session. I pretty much loathed Rise of Skywalker, LOL. So you know what I would say, but I can be there if you want full attendance. To which I replied, I was let down upon watching another time. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have a round table. He says, cool, I would be there. And I said, it's really hard to like these sequels with each new live action content that's released. Book of Boba Fett is pretty rad. He says, yeah, now you're seeing what it felt like to grow up with the original trilogy and then watch Star Wars slowly wither. Super glad these shows are doing well. And in that moment, I had something hit me. I was like, why did I protect the sequels so much? Like, why was I protecting them? Like, why was I fighting, like, for them? And it goes back to, like, what I've said before. It was like, that's all I had, like, live action wise at that time. Because Force Awakens and The Last Jedi largely is what kind of kickstarted my desire to, like, dive deeper into Star Wars lore. To which I started learning more, reading graphic novels, like kind of seeing what else was out there, you know, watching like the auxiliary stuff. And then upon acquiring more knowledge, you know, The Mandalorian came out, like all this stuff started coming out. And I was like, what the heck? This is amazing. You go back and revisit these movies that you thought you liked. And it's like, this isn't quite how I remember it. And now that the hype has really worn off. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of people, you know, they blame Disney mainly for, you know, how they handled these movies. And, you know, the reason they're so bad is because, you know, Disney took over, you know, Lucasfilms and all this stuff. But that's the thing that's interesting is Disney has put out, you know, quality content as well. You know, The Mandalorian is great. Book of Boba Fett, I'm really enjoying. And I mean, I said that there was a lapse in quality in season 7 of the Clone Wars, which Disney did, versus the Rise of Skywalker. I think that's the thing that's jarring about it, is that you would almost expect for the movies to be of higher quality than the like TV shows, and for some weird reason they're not. And I think that's the reason it's just so odd, you know.
It's
really
backwards.
Is it it's
Yeah.
not I wouldn't say it's a weird reason. I would say it's a fairly known reason why there's a clear difference, and it's the creative teams behind the shows versus the movies. I mean, it's full stop.
Well, it's also the motivation for these movies as well. The motivation for making these 3 sequel movies was Disney had to make money back on what they had just shelled out millions and millions of dollars for. Yeah. And so it was very quickly pushed out there, and a team was assembled. And as we look back on it, we see that it did not come from a place of love. Well, I can't say that. People that worked on these sequel trilogies, they grew up with Star Wars. They loved Star Wars. They wanted to create the best Star Wars possible. But it was so haphazardly thrown together, and a clear story was not outlined from start to finish. And this is why it has derailed so badly, and why it is devoid of the emotion. And I'm not saying Lucas's vision was perfect. It wasn't. But the way he put it together was better than the way this sequel trilogy was put together.
Yeah. And yeah. So let's go. Sorry, we kind of derailed a little bit. So Ethan, when's the last time you watched this movie for recreation?
Okay, I have watched this movie 3 times all the way through. I watched it twice in the theater. The first time I watched it, I took my son on opening night, and we were excited for Star Wars. And when I left the theater, I thought, I'm going to have to watch that again because I don't know how I feel. I went back the next night with Ryan Mazzacco, and we watched it, and we both walked out and looked at each other, and we were both just kind of like, we're going to have to think about this one for a little bit. And then when it came out in April of 2020 or whenever it hit Disney Plus.
You watched it with me too in IMAX in Branson.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We did. Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 times I've seen this movie all the way through. The last time I watched it all the way through was on Disney Plus. And I think I had something else going, and it was just kind of on in the background. I didn't pay much attention to it. It's curious. I knew you guys were coming up to this movie, so I thought, well, I'm going to go through the sequel trilogy again. I watched Force Awakens. It's a better movie than I gave it credit for, and I've talked about that on here before. The Last Jedi, I skipped, and then Rise of Skywalker. I started it the other night, a week or 2 ago, and I got 10 minutes into it and realized I can't watch this, and turned it off. And so that's all of it right there. My experience with Rise of Skywalker.
The last time I watched it for fun was that IMAX experience. That was the 3rd time I had watched it. And I had loved it all 3 times. Fast forward to now, 3 years, 2.5 years, whatever. watch it for this podcast, and I'm like just kind of in awe at how different it is than the other two movies. And it just felt like, I'm like, are we watching the same characters here, like, that we've been watching? So let's get into it. The time has come. The plot for Rise of Skywalker. Somehow, Palpatine returned. Oh. Now, that is the plot. Like, put the pieces together. The final order is coming. It's happening. About to throw down.
Force the pieces together. That's the plot, and then you force all the pieces together.
Yeah. Now, before we get too deep into this, into the weeds, there was a comic book that came out, Dark Empire, I believe, where Palpatine had been attempting to clone himself. He had been cloning himself. So there were elements that were taken from old books and put into this movie. So I didn't find the Palpatine thing as egregious just because it had been done before already. You know, that's an idea that had been existing already. The problem was how they tried to link their heroine to him and make us care further because she's attached to Palpatine. That was my biggest problem watching this movie this time.
Well,
go ahead, Caleb.
That amongst other things, but
yes, but that was the
Caleb,
biggest one. Go ahead, Caleb.
I think that the Palpatine thing being back could have worked. Again, if they hadn't rushed these movies and had 2 different directors for 3 different movies, if they had a cohesive storyline for the trilogy, and if they could have used, I don't know, something called foreshadowing to kind of make it make sense to where, like, oh, it's not like some out of the blue thing, to where now you have the guy from from Lord of the Rings just saying stuff like dark science, or like just giving random words to try to explain how it's possible. If there was just a little bit more of a cohesive writing, and using something as simple as foreshadowing, you probably could, it would have been so much easier to buy into it.
Well,
I totally agree. It could have worked, if it had been handled well, but execution is king, and they failed.
Well, you look at episodes 4 and 5, the Emperor is not really there. He's in a hologram in Empire Strikes Back, but because they talk about what's going on, he's in the background, right? And same with 1, 2, and 3. The rise of Palpatine in the prequels is there in the background. I mean, the first movie is The Phantom Menace, so you're clued into that, and we don't get that in The Force Awakens. We don't get that in The Last Jedi, and then we sit down for this one, and a voice from the dead, and it's just boom, here's Palpatine, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, the dead speak.
Yeah, the dead speak. That was it.
It's a direct result of there being no master plan, because essentially what you had with Abrams and Johnson was 2 children on the playground who kept contradicting each other's pretend fantasies. Like, one started saying, oh no, hey, this pretend thing we're doing is this way. And then the other kid says, no, none of that's true. It's all this way. And then the other kid comes back and says, no, none of what you said is true. It's this way. And that is how the trilogy went.
No, I have a force field. You didn't get me. I had a force field. That was my favorite one to pull on the playground.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm sure Abrams was watching Last Jedi and thinking, okay, so my big bad that I set up, you just chopped in half. So now we don't have a villain for the third one. So, so he made the laziest choice possible, which was, to bring back the Emperor. I mean, it was a comedy of errors, and just so much wrong.
Yeah.
And then speaking to what Gabe was getting at with Rey being Palpatine's granddaughter, it's crazy because we know that they didn't come up with that until the very end, because Daisy Ridley has said that she didn't know whose daughter she was supposed to be while filming the other 2 movies. She didn't know who she was supposed to be until the last movie, which is just insanity like absolute insanity that they would do that to these people that are invested in this trilogy.
Well, one of the few things I'll actually credit Rian Johnson with is I actually liked the twist that he did where she was nobody, because especially when you grow up with the books, you learn that anybody could end up being a Jedi, being Force sensitive. You never know who is going to have the talent. So I didn't mind at all the thought of her being, not having to come from some mythical or illustrious bloodline or anything like that. But it's like, that's where it's the thing where you have two directors who can't resist contradicting each other. It's like, just pick something and go with it.
It's almost appropriate that this is what happened with J.J. Abrams starting this arc in The Force Awakens, because he sets the mystery box. Who is she, right? And that's the big question you're left with at the end of that movie. And then, Rian Johnson comes along and says, "Oh, I'll tell you who she is. Nobody. Your parents are dead in a pauper's grave," and so that's why this movie, when we get to Rise of Skywalker, is so jarring, because it's, Kylo Ren's telling her you're nobody. And then in this movie, in Rise of Skywalker, he's done a complete 180, and it's, you have his power. You are the heir to the Emperor's throne, and it's just, it is so jarring that it stretches your ability to suspend disbelief.
All it did was set up Kylo Ren as being like the most toxic boyfriend ever. Like the one saying like, you're going to be nothing. You're nobody. Like, you're never going to be anything. And then her being like, and he's like, I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean any of that. You're actually Palpy's granddaughter. You are somebody.
Because I love you.
Yeah. I would never hurt you. You're really Palpatine's granddaughter. God, that must suck.
Which is that why a lot of a weird fan base really love the love story at the end of this movie, at the end of Rise of Skywalker? Is that what happened?
Probably.
We don't have to go down that road.
There are people that love that. Yes.
Yeah. My sister is one of them.
Is Kylo Ren is the coolest part of all three of these movies. What would have been so baller is what would have been more baller than telling Rey she was nobody would be just killing her and then making it like the third movie is like the Rise of Skywalker. You know what I mean? Being Kylo Ren. I want to say one really good thing about this movie so far, and that's that John Williams is a genius. So if you listen to Kylo Ren's score, it's like ta, 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 ta. It's in a minor tone. At the end, after he's had his redemption arc, John Williams is like, God, this is awful. How am I going to do this? He's like, let's take his theme and literally put it in a major key. And that's what it is. It's just sped up. It's more triumphant and fast, but it's the same theme. And I was like, God, he is so freaking smart, because it makes you like Kylo Ren more, like, without even realizing it, subconsciously. So that's just something I wanted to say really quick, because the music's awesome. Everyone's themes are pretty freaking cool, in my opinion.
And Adam Driver is, I do think you're right, probably the best thing to come out of these movies. He's what it's allowed him to do outside of Star Wars. I mean, when he's done, SNL sketches and stuff, the dude is hilarious. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually very happy for him that he is like gotten to showcase how talented he is, because the dude is genuinely talented.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Caleb.
I have a question for Gabe. So you just alluded to Kylo Ren being the Skywalker that has risen. Is that who you think it is? Like, is that who you think the Rise of Skywalker, who that's pointing to, is that it's Kylo Ren?
No, I said that would have been cool, though. That's why I said, like, you might as well just kill Rey and give him the third movie, because he's actually a Skywalker, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She made herself a Skywalker.
Yeah.
She made herself a Skywalker.
Yeah, which means ultimately the Emperor won, because the Emperor wiped out the Skywalker line, and then his offspring stole their name.
Oh.
Wow.
There's a hot take for hating this movie even more.
He is literally, he was like a Force ghost, and he was all, like chuckling. Do it. Like,
yeah, I mean, his his line outlasted the Skywalkers. He won.
Yeah, because
He erased the Skywalkers and took over their bloodline. I mean, that's the ultimate. That's victory.
Oh.
Wow, I didn't even think about
I don't know
that.
how you managed to do it. Like how I didn't realize like before, because it's so obvious that like the Skywalker line is just dead now. But that's like heartbreaking.
Well, you
kind
know,
of.
it's that is why that she had that line. That's why she took the name at the end, because if J.J. Abrams had closed out that movie in credits after her saying Palpatine, then yeah, that's all the fans would have been left with, and that would have been devastating. So they had to snatch something from the jaws of defeat, and that's all they could come up with.
It's like George Lucas was on set that day, and he's like, "Hey, JJ, I didn't want you to, step on anyone's toes." And then JJ just looks at him, just, just like straight up, just punches him. Like this. I'm the captain now. You know what I mean? Okay, let's get into all the things we don't like. Okay, we're just gonna go around the room.
All night.
We're gonna go around the room. Everyone's gonna pick one thing. We're gonna riff off of it because we'll probably touch on all of them. So, Maestri, kick us off. Wait, you have to say one thing you like and one thing you don't like.
Okay, one thing I like.
Come on,
Lando. I like Lando. Lando's in this one.
That's it.
So there you go. Yeah,
all-
I like Lando.
Creeping on a girl that's way younger than him at the end.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
that's just Billy D. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, Lando. Yeah, Lando showed up, and we know he's still alive in this universe, in this version of the universe.
okay.
And somehow he knows. Never mind. I'll hold on to that.
Okay,
Move on, because I got nothing else.
One thing you don't like.
One thing I don't like, okay, I alluded to it before, hyper skipping. They did everything they could do to break the Star Wars universe from everything we knew before. So that they're doing, and here it's the same thing we got in Last Jedi with the Holdo maneuver. That broke Star Wars, because now all they have to do is program freighters to go crash into First Order fleets, and they're instantly defeated. If they can crash into all the ships at hyperspeed with small ships, they're shattered. Well, the same thing, hyper skipping is not supposed to happen in Star Wars. That's the first line that Solo gives to Luke Skywalker when they get on the Millennium Falcon and fly out of Mos Eisley. And here they broke that rule. And it just from the start, and that's why I turned it off 10 minutes into that film, is because
Ethan,
it's broke.
It's the Millennium Falcon. It did the Kessel Run in 11 parsecs.
12
Less than 12
parsecs.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
But I get it. I get it. And I get it.
It's the
But
Falcon. No.
It's that, and then the dagger, and who built that dagger, and the stupid puzzle that's supposed to solve.
That stupid dagger that if you're not standing on the exact spot by pure chance, the dagger doesn't work.
Yeah, and they're not taking into account the fact that the Death Star's rusting away in an ocean and ever changing and shifting. And yeah, there's so much of this film that is just J.J. Abrams willing it to get to the end credit scenes and close out this trilogy. And they just didn't make it a solid enough story to hang anything worthwhile on.
Even just character things. There's no consideration for how a real person would actually react. Like if you think of Finn, he in that movie, how many times was he cheering to see stormtroopers blown up, shot, in some manner killed? But those were his former partners and colleagues. And wouldn't someone who had been in his position and escaped feel some sympathy for them and want in some way to try to free and liberate them, instead of cheering as they die?
And then they doubled down on that idea by having an entire planet with a bunch of other stormtroopers who have switched sides. So obviously there's quite a few that are in a moral dilemma about what they're doing. But Finn's right there, like trying to, oh man, I just killed like 20 more of those guys.
Compare that to the Mandalorian, to Bill Burr's character. I'm blanking on his name.
Good.
Who had like 10 minutes of screen time and had a better character arc and payoff in those 10 minutes of screen time across a few episodes than Finn did in 3 entire movies. And I mean, in one scene, you saw like the trauma that he still had from what he went through. You saw how much he cared about the partners and the fellow soldiers that he lost, even though he knew they were on the wrong side. And you saw him antagonized about that to the point where he killed an officer who was happy about it in front of a room full of other officers. I mean, it's do you care enough about your audience and about your characters to actually have a good story? And it is obvious they did not.
But he did shoot that one stormtrooper that was just there for lunch. I mean, that's
true.
pretty cold.
For that, yeah.
Pretty cold.
I mean,
it had to be done.
It's Bill Burr, so
right, yeah.
Well, here's the thing too. While we're on the topic of Finn could have been Finn is force sensitive,
which I didn't like that either.
He's force sensitive.
You don't have to make everyone force sensitive to make them matter.
It's true.
Han Solo was never force sensitive, and he was, a critical central character.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have been really fascinating to see an ex-stormtrooper that was force sensitive become a Jedi. They missed a key opportunity. Rian Johnson miffed it. Instead of making something interesting happen with Finn.
But see, if they'd have done that, then they would have been accused of ripping off the old EU, because they did that in the EU with the former stormtrooper. So
yeah, true. And Rian Johnson I don't think was interested in building up a character. I think he was only interested in tearing down original characters.
Go ahead.
I will say this about Finn too. I wish that they would have just, and this is more kind of on The Last Jedi than necessarily on this movie, but I wish that they would have focused more on the relationship that Finn had with Rey and the chemistry that they had, and that was basically what The Force Awakens was kind of built on. But they just threw that away, and their chemistry is just all off in this movie and all over the place because of the last movie, and it just doesn't work. And then Finn is kind of just this leftover character who doesn't really have any place at all in this movie. He's just like an extra body. But then because they decided to go the route with Rey and Kylo, Finn's just left without anything, really. There's no real purpose for him in this movie.
Not to mention, they had tried to make Rose and Finn a thing, and it's like I want to see like a Family Guy skit or like an SNL skit where Rose Tico comes over to Finn. She's like, hey Finn, how's it going? He's like, hey, sup? Yeah, because that's basically what happened. Like, they tried to make them a thing, and all of a sudden it's like Fatal Attraction. Whenever she's like, oh, I have to come with you to the thing, he should have been like, nah, it's cool. Like, you could stay. Like, I'll go with my new friends, It just was so cringy to see her at all. And I feel really bad saying that. I really do. I feel like a bad person for just saying that just then. But she added nothing to the story. And ultimately, he added nothing to the story. Long term. Zero.
Well, Rose was only there for social commentary anyway.
Yeah.
She didn't have any purpose aside from that. So anything else was just kind of shoehorned in.
Yeah, no, yeah. Okay. Ethan, we got your positive and negative. See what happens. See what happens whenever you incite violence on the podcast.
Hey, I woke up and chose violence for this podcast.
You were like, I was like, hey, you want to show up? I just called you a couple hours ago, and I was like, hey, you're welcome to show up. And you're like, you know what? I think I will. I think I will be divisive. No, I'm just kidding. Ryan.
No, Ryan's the one with the hot takes here.
Hey, everyone's bringing them out tonight. I knew this was going to be a good one. Ryan, one positive and one negative.
Okay. If you ignore all of the story around it, the visual of Rey, standing against Palpatine and his lightning with the two lightsabers, the visual of that was very cool.
Agreed.
Yeah. So the visual was cool.
Go ahead, Rex. Sorry, wrote 1 second. What'd you say?
I was just gonna say that whole scene was really visually pretty cool.
Yeah. In fact, there's actually something I do like. Someone took that scene with her like calling up the other lightsaber, and they put it to a Rage Against the Machine song, and the effect is actually really cool. quite funny actually. So yeah, visually that part was cool. One thing I didn't like.
You can only pick one.
I know. Okay, so at the end of The Last Jedi, they cannot get anyone to come help the Resistance, so that there's like a dozen of them by the end of the movie. Yet by the end of this movie, Lando has magically recruited the entire galaxy to come and fight alongside them. And I literally mean magically.
No, it was the power of Babu Frick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No lead up, no anything, just suddenly apropos of nothing, for no reason, completely unearned, we have this fleet that can suddenly challenge this stupid fleet of stupid Star Destroyers.
I love Rebels, and I was angered that I saw the Ghost in that fleet. Just made me mad.
Wait, it was in there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, the VCX 100. Yeah.
That is not cool.
I love that ship.
Yeah, it is a cool
No.
ship. Yeah.
The fact that it was in the scene was
not
cool.
Yeah, it was not cool.
But Wedge was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking,
also not
looking real old.
Right? Goes, yeah, also not cool. All right. Everyone be cool. No, I'm just kidding. Rex, you've been awfully quiet. You've just been drinking it in. That's what I love about you. Like, you make us look like there's a lot of us because you're an extra person there, but usually, like, you don't say a lot. Like, you really don't. But whenever you do speak, I'm always like, Rex is literally what we need on this show every single time. But I know you can't make it every time, which makes me sad. But either way, one positive.
I just think everyone's pretty much hitting everything on the head, you know?
Yeah,
with their
it's
takes, so.
yeah. Well, what about you though? One positive, one negative.
Yeah. I would say for a positive, besides Babu Freak, I would say the relationship between Kylo and Rey, the whole, like, what's it called? The dyad?
The dyad.
Dyad. I thought that whole interaction with them was pretty cool, and like seeing the Force used in that way, and when she like passes him the lightsaber, I really thought that was a cool idea, and could have been, just a really cool thing if it wasn't in such a bad movie. But one negative, I think when I really started to just like get upset watching the movie was when the whole thing with Chewbacca, here he goes on the ship, and she's trying to like pull it back, and then Kylo starts to pull it, and then the Force lightning comes out of her, the Palpatine side, and you think Chewie's dead, I guess. Just the way they did all that was just, Ethan said like everything felt so jarring in this movie, and that's what it felt like. It just felt jarring. Like there was no even like big reaction that Chewie died. Like they screamed his name, and that was pretty much it. So that whole scene I thought was really terrible. And that's where they find the dagger and stuff too. But also when she jumps and like cuts the TIE fighter wing, pretty stupid.
I thought that was awesome.
But like, why does she turn around and like run?
Because it
like,
looked cool. Oh yeah, when she's all like,
jump?
and like,
yeah,
that was pretty stupid actually. But the flip was dope.
Yeah, the flip
was for the male audience right there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But what's more questionable is not the flip, but how Kylo survived what looked like a really bad like TIE fighter crash.
Unscathed.
Those like those cockpits are pretty fragile.
Well, not his.
Yeah. I mean, it must be.
No
the Force,
like,
the Force.
He was all like holding it together.
One of that reminds me, like one of my biggest negative is how they use the Force in these trilogies, and how it's just like a catch-all for explaining anything, and they they really abuse that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, you're spot on with that one. And that's what I was alluding to and didn't get around to that point earlier, but I'll just piggyback off of that. They broke a lot of the things that we accepted about Star Wars and that made it a lived in real type universe that had limits and rules. I get pushing the boundaries and telling different stories and changing our perception, but yeah, like you alluded to it there, and they just drop things on you out of the blue, and it's like, oh, I have to accept this now.
You come into this movie and like, you know, they're time skip, either what light skipping, and then all of a sudden, like you see Rey, and she looks like a god, just like floating all these rocks around her, and what she does with the Force is just insane and
completely unimaginative.
Yeah, it's just whatever they want to do.
Well,
so.
It'd be different if like we saw like Obi-Wan doing something like that, right? Like it would be unquestioned. It'd be like, yeah, I always knew Obi-Wan was strong, right?
Yeah, but Obi-Wan's not flashy, so he didn't have to.
That's true.
Yeah, you know,
or I mean, you could even explain it just by saying, because we had, you know, if you read, you know, like a lot of like the, you know, Old Republic comics and things, Jedi did incredible, sometimes godlike things. You could have easily explained it by saying, okay, well, maybe she's got these manuscripts, or of course they got burned or something, didn't they? But like, if you explain it by saying, hey, I'm able to kind of rediscover what like some of the Old Republic Jedi were doing and bringing back some of the things that were done in the comics and things, you could have rooted it back in Jedi lore and you know, brought new stuff into the movies that the movie going audience hadn't seen, but still had good Star Wars and Jedi lore behind it and had really cool, interesting, and really powerful stuff for her to do. But they took the lazy way out. They didn't reason through it. They didn't try to tie it to, you know, the whole lore and history of the galaxy. They just threw stuff at the screen when it was convenient in the moment, and then they discarded it when it wasn't.
And one other thing too, it just made me think, I remember one of the most disappointing parts of the Last Jedi for me was when Luke shows up on Crate and he's facing off against all of the walkers. And I remember watching that, expecting for Luke to just destroy all of those walkers, because I was like, man, that'd be such a cool thing for someone that's so powerful with the Force, for Luke Skywalker to do. And it would be believable because he's Luke Skywalker. But he doesn't do that. And it was kind of disappointing to me. But then in this movie, you get Rey literally pulling down that ship out of the sky. And I was like, man, that's a really cool thing that they did, but they did it with the wrong character. It didn't work because it's her, and there's no reason for us to believe. We haven't really seen that development. And we don't really know for sure too that like she's the most powerful person because she just doesn't have that same weight behind her.
She hasn't trained very long.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, she's magically good at everything.
Yeah.
She's a Palpatine.
Yeah. Although it's funny you brought up that scene, Caleb, because I think there's another aspect of that scene that is probably, I think, the best moment in that movie, which is when, at least for me, which is when, you know, Luke shows up. They don't know he's a hologram or whatever yet. And as soon as Kylo Ren sees him, he says, "Fire everything we have at that man." And I remember it's like, okay, finally a bad guy who does the practical thing, and he's like, kill that guy. And that was like the one moment in that movie I thought, now that is something that I would have written, because it makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it would have been way cooler if right after that he just destroys all of those walkers.
I 100% agree. Well, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. There was in some of the older comics and some of the Dark Horse comics, there was a scene where Luke faced off against an AT-AT, and I think it's been years since I've read it, but even he was thinking back to the whole size matters not principle that Yoda taught him. So he's standing there facing off against an Imperial Walker, and he's literally using a force bubble to deflect the turbo laser fire. And then when it you know, he's done taking that, he literally just reaches up and crushes it. And yeah, I mean, why couldn't you have had him do something cool like that? And well, I'll tell you why. It's because all they wanted was to deconstruct and destroy his character.
Yeah. Well, and
I was just gonna say. Well, frick, I'm going. All right, I'm stepping in. I can't. Freaking hate Zoom, dude. I just want to say too, like, it's hard when you're watching something on screen and you want something to happen, and it's bad. This is bad for Star Wars when you go back to saying, "Oh, but I did like this isn't that big of a deal. Like I did this as some rando character in Force Unleashed. Like it's Luke Skywalker. Why doesn't he just pick those guys up, all of them, and just Because I literally did that, like in a game." It's bad when you're comparing your experiences you as the player have done that are better than on-screen moments that are supposed to be iconic and defining. And you're comparing it to another medium of entertainment whenever the precedent has been set for a specific medium. When it's Star Wars, we should be blown out of the water. Like, Caleb's right. Like, Caleb and Ryan are both right. Like, Luke Skywalker is more than capable of picking up probably all of those walkers simultaneously, probably, at this point, and just crushing them. Go ahead, Ethan.
Well, I was just going to say that speaks to what I was alluding to earlier. Ryan, you're talking about Luke's doing that, crushing that walker in that moment. But what's his motivation, or what's he thinking about? Well, he's thinking back to the lessons that he was taught by Yoda. There's rules there, and he has to remember these things, keep them in mind. There has to be discipline there. And we saw that in the prequels. We saw that in Luke Skywalker's journey in the original trilogy. And then we get to this one, and Rey's just like, hey, look what I can do. And then she does it. And it's like the only thing that's missing is in her, Rex alluded to her floating in the air with all the rocks and everything going on around her. The only thing missing is her going, and I mean, it felt completely unearned. And
for our listeners, Ethan took a selfie.
I took a selfie. And I very much feel like that's exactly how she aped her way through this entire trilogy. Anyway.
Yeah. And I'll just say one thing, a little off topic, but kind of what we were talking about. We're, doing these cool, powerful things with the Force. There's another moment in Rogue One where I had the similar thought, where it's like, man, you could have made a really cool scene cooler by doing this. And it's after the Darth Vader hallway scene at the end of that movie, where he opens the last thing and, the candidate for releases and jets away. How cool would it have been if he had just sat there and tried to hold it in place? Like, you have Darth Vader just holding it, and it's trying to go, and then it just jets off into hyperspace. And
that would have been cool.
Grip. It would have been so cool, but no. Again, but I think I go back to the mental image of it. I think it's from a Force Unleashed game of Star Killer pulling down a Star Destroyer. And it's just like, man, if we could have that in a game, why can't we get something cool like that in the movie and have it be Luke or Darth Vader, one of these awesome characters, instead of it being Rey,
Well, on the topic of Darth Vader, I'm going to piggyback off you just for a second. In the Jedi Fallen Order, he holds back the ocean.
Yeah.
Not the ocean. He's holding it and protecting himself from being crushed by the pressure of all that stuff happening. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's bad when you're watching something like this and being like, man, you really made Luke look like a chump here. And not to mention seeing the things that he's done in the comics and the books, especially Luke's one of the very few Jedi who literally came back from the dark side, was in a dark place and was able to break free from it, or actually keep it in control somewhat. And who is Rey? Who is she? That's what I kept asking myself during this movie. I'm like, why did I defend you? You silly, silly character. Why did I ever? And it goes back to, you want it to be good. And it would be different if they were still putting out just the same level and style of content. But you have people who actually get what we say. What we say as fans is they get Star Wars. Jon Favreau, our Lord and Savior Dave Filoni, they get Star Wars. They understand it. And just their execution with everything, the more stuff that comes out, even Book of Boba Fett, the bad things where I'm like, oh God, yeah, this is really directed by the guy who did Spy Kids. You know what I mean? The whatever that moped chase scene was, I was like, where have I seen this? Spy Kids 3D. That's where I saw this. Like,
that is funny you bring that up, because I was thinking, and I am very much enjoying the show as a whole, but in that scene I was thinking, this is not great.
Yeah.
And then at the end when
That's
it said directed by Robert Rodriguez, I was like, oh,
Bingo.
That's why, because of all the directors I know, only he could do something super cool and then something so ridiculously cheesy that you're like, how can that come out of the same brain as a guy who did this other cool thing?
Literally. Yeah. Well, and it's just like, even, okay, we talk about like the executive level, like the executive producer level. Jon Favreau, executive producer, writer of Book of Boba Fett. That just goes to show the relationship. There's only so much you can do until you give the privilege of direction to somebody. So Jon Favreau, you only have so much time to do this thing. I could imagine Jon Favreau getting back those dailies and being like, okay, I mean, and Robert Rodriguez being like, "It's all we got, man." Like, because he's always wearing that weird hat, and like, Jon Favreau was like, "Whatever, we only have like 3 episodes, and the other ones are really good, so fine. Like, we can keep your moped chase. We can keep the gang from Back to the Future 2 in this episode if you want."
I thought that was odd too when
perfect.
I watched it.
I was like, Biff, I've seen this. Like, this is Biff's gang, or Biff, whatever his name is, Buff, whatever his name is.
We just needed a line. You can't go across sand without power.
Literally. I just,
but
even
then
still,
they come back with episode 4 and make it okay.
Exactly.
Episode 4 comes back with a vengeance.
Even that aside, there are episodes, individual 30 to 45 minute episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. Boba Fett being a legendary character, but relatively unfleshed, I would say, at this point in time, and going a new direction. Each one of those episodes is better than The Rise of Skywalker in its entirety, I think. And that's bad. Your flagship movies being overshadowed by people who actually get Star Wars. And I just, it makes me happy, because it's like, I'm fully on board. I was so skeptical about Book of Boba Fett, but I'm fully on board. I'm loving it. Like, we're covering it week to week on Wannabe Critic.
It's just this is the tragedy of this sequel trilogy, and ultimately this movie that we're talking about, because Disney rushed into making a trilogy to get themselves on the map with this IP. And what we're seeing now is what they should have started with. We should have been coming up with show ideas and things like this to ease the everyone into new Star Wars and what's to come, and then let that develop over time. And I'm saying this is a perfect world. There's no way the suits would have allowed this to happen. But imagine if the creative group that has now gotten their feet wet with good storytelling and has proven themselves, imagine if this crew now decided, okay, let's take on episodes 7, 8, and 9. What would we have gotten? It would have been amazing.
It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
It would have been,
or at least bring on, somebody who cared enough about it to be as much of a Kevin Feige for Star Wars as they could, for those movies, to have a plan, to have a vision, and to something cohesive, and to really go at it. Whoever you want to hire to direct, but to make sure that the person with the plan and the vision is the one in charge. And I know that can be easier said than done, because we've seen, like with the Snyderverse, that sometimes they pick a guy to be in charge and it's the wrong guy to be in charge. So yeah, I don't underestimate how difficult that is, but you have to do it. I mean, that's your job. Find the guy or the girl, whoever, who cares enough to do it right, and put it in their hands. And yeah, I think a lot of it boils down to hubris, thinking that no matter what they make, people are going to gobble it up. And the fact that the Rise of Skywalker literally made half of what The Force Awakens did, bears out that they were completely wrong. People will not just take whatever you try to shove down their throats.
Yeah, I think Disney just saw green and they wanted to cash out and get their investment back, pretty much, which they bought it for like $4 billion, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like a relatively small sum at this point to me.
Yeah, now that
Now it's like-
Microsoft just bought Blizzard.
Yeah, I mean,
$68 billion
Yeah.
for man.
that's for to put that in perspective, that is the entirety of Nintendo's market cap. So they literally just bought Nintendo and then some in terms of numbers, which is kind of weird to think about. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, like I said, we've gotten off track. Caleb, I think it's your turn, or did you go already?
Nope, I haven't.
Okay.
Gone, so
Caleb, because we're running out of time. Caleb, bring us home. One positive,
All
one
right.
negative.
I'll try to keep it short.
Take
But-
your time. Take your time.
Yeah. So my positive, I really like when Rey goes back to the planet where Luke was, and she throws the lightsaber into the fire, and then Luke like grabs it out of the fire, comes out of the fire, and then I mean my favorite part probably of the whole movie is when Luke lifts the X-wing out of the water, and you're getting the same score that you had from Episode 5 when Yoda lifts it. So it's, yeah, it's just a cool like seeing Luke do it himself, and seeing his progression even though he's dead. I thought that was really cool. But a lot of that is probably nostalgia for Episode 5, and that's kind of the other side of that. As to my least favorite part of the movie, and this is probably not super specific, but just all of the back and forth dialogue between the characters is just not very well written, and not, I don't know, just doesn't come off great. It just is very cheesy, very bland. It feels almost very like Attack of the Clones esque, and just like how poor it all sounds. And especially, and this isn't super fair, but I cannot stand any of the times where Carrie Fisher is talking. And I know that they were, having to reuse footage that they had left over from the previous two movies because she was dead. And that this kind of, her dying kind of ruined their entire plan of, them doing a movie that was Han focused, movie that was Luke focused, and then finally a movie that was Leia focused. It ruined that plan. But still, it just does not come off well at all. It's super jarring. There's scenes that include it that just didn't need to. Like there's a whole scene where Leia's like talking to, her real life daughter, and maybe like Rose is there, and like that one like bigger pilot, and it's just like unnecessary and dumb and just jarring. I just didn't like it. And there's so many just other dialogue points. Like I hate when they're on the planet getting chased by the stormtroopers, and like 5 different people say they can fly now. Like it's so stupid. I hate how they're in the quicksand, and Finn says to Rey, I have to tell you something. And then they never really come back to it ever. And it's just like, it's all really, really jarring and really dumb. And it makes this movie that already has a plot that's filled with holes and feels like they're just rushedly like trying to fix all of the problems that were created by The Last Jedi. It just makes it that much worse. So yeah.
There you have it. For me, I alluded to it already. The music across all 3 of these sequel movies is awesome. It really is. John Williams is a genius. Like, he knows how to accentuate story beats based off of music. And what little, like, tingle of emotion you feel for a lot of these characters a lot of the time is because of the music. And, it could even be so much as, like, you want to like a character, or you want to like a thing. And I think, or you want to like a scene, but you just can't get there because your eyes are seeing it and you're like, I can't believe I'm watching this. But you're hearing something and it's like, I recognize this, like for instance, the scene where Luke pulls the X-wing out of the water, and Yoda's theme plays. That's my favorite piece of music in Star Wars, period. And I love that the music acknowledges that relationship between those two characters and acknowledges the relationship between Yoda and Luke. Kylo's theme, like I mentioned before, like how it kind of shifts as he's made the turn or whatever. Rey has a really cool theme that suits her character well, I think. That's my favorite part of these movies, and that's my favorite part of this movie. The thing that I think I hate the most about this movie is all of the auxiliary characters and subplots, the side quests that are brought in to introduce new elements to the story to take up time. Ochi and Ochi's ship and Ochi's dagger, dumb. The planet that Kerry Russell is on, that, you know, Poe, who we don't care about, has a love interest there, and they spend a good amount of time trying to develop that. Don't care. The only good thing about that place is Babu Freak. I mean, Babu Freak is probably the most Star Wars feeling thing about this movie to me. Which is sad, actually, now that I think about it. Like, it's sad when Babu Freak is the person you're watching on screen and you're like, you belong. like you belong. Hey! You know, sorry, my headset just died. Hold on one sec. And also, just all the side little things that they do for emphasis, or they try to add emphasis to. The Knights of Ren. Wasted. Coolest freaking bad guy gang ever. Wasted. And they show them too. They're like menacing, and like one of them's got like a giant cleaver, like they look like Dark Souls bosses. And they're just completely wasted. Sorry, I'm trying to talk at the same time. Don't ever let your headset die, gentlemen. Just don't let it happen. Okay, I think I'm good. And I could go on. Like there's more to it, you know, of these auxiliary plots and these auxiliary things coming in. And that's ultimately what makes this movie so long. But if you took all that stuff away, what do you have? Your side quests and subplots are literally the only thing that make up the majority of this time in this movie. And they, like Rex said, they force the plot together. It's sad. It's really, really sad. So that's all I have to say.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, the whole plot is a series of MacGuffin chases, and that is all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally, look, we talk about the RPG a lot. I'm really excited about that project. It's been really fun to be able to like become a storyteller and not have anyone say, hey, you shouldn't do that. But there's so much in this movie where I'm like, you really shouldn't have done that. And I kind of get like where Ryan comes from, and Ryan writes professionally, like, and comes up with stories professionally. But like you watch all this stuff unfolding and you just can't even make an argument for it anymore. Like I can't defend this movie ever again. Like I officially do not like this movie. And that makes me really sad because I loved it. I loved it when it came out.
Yeah. I love hearing that. It's like, you know, Palpatine won. I feel like I've won that argument now.
You're welcome.
The sad thing is I could name you 50 authors that I know personally that would write better Star Wars scripts than what we got.
Yeah.
And yet people got paid millions of dollars to make utter trash.
It is. It's bad. It's bad. It is a bad movie.
Hey, at the end, wasn't that like the coolest lightsaber you've ever seen then?
The yellow one?
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the handle. I thought it was too chunky and impractical.
Oh, I liked the black handle.
I did like how whenever they were fighting, her and Kylo Ren were fighting, and Kylo Ren just gets sunned. Like, he, like, looks away for a second. He's all, oh! Like, you know, like, oh, I got stabbed, you know? And he legitimately looks surprised. One thing that I kind of liked that a lot of you guys didn't like, I love whenever things about the Force the Force is innovated on. Rey being able to do everything with the Force, I don't like, or, you know, being a catch-all, I don't like. The fact that she was able to do the thing that Anakin sought after and that Palpatine claimed existed, again, something I'm glad existed, or something I'm glad that happened, but kind of like what Caleb said, they did it with the wrong character. Like, go ahead, Caleb.
And that's not something that's exclusive to her, because before this movie came out, we saw Grogu do it in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, literally. Literally the week before this movie came out, we saw Grogu do that.
Well, we saw Grogu do that because they were doing that in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that aside,
But it's not something. If they had done that and would have just said, Rey's gonna have one really cool way that she connects with the Force, and that's her thing that she can do. But like you said, they make her a catch-all where she can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and is immediately great at it. Yeah, and I'm all for innovation and doing interesting things with the Force, but yeah, you can't just suddenly say, "Oh, I can do this now."
But yeah, don't forget the world build. I was just gonna say, don't. Yeah.
Well, and I'll give you one of my favorite Star Wars books, just as a way to illustrate how you can do something different, and if you do it right, it's interesting. The main character of I, Jedi has a very interesting genetic kind of defect as a Jedi, in that anyone in his family line cannot use the Force for telekinesis, however, like just naturally. However, they can absorb other types of energy and transform that into telekinetic energy. So like there's a scene where he and other apprentices and things are in this like a volcanic pool, and there's like a subterranean eruption that makes the water essentially boil, and all the other apprentices are fleeing for their lives, and he sits in the boiling water, absorbs the thermal energy, and is able to not only survive but transform that into Force telekinesis, and actually he actually saves another apprentice because he uses that ability to lift her out of the water and push her to safety. So it's interesting, but they built it into the character, and they showed there were highs and lows of it. There were times, there was even a flashback where you see an ancestor of his killed because he could not use regular Force telekinesis. They made it feel real and live in the world while being creative and different. And that's what happens when you have a good writer who puts effort into it.
And I want a Corran Horn animated series, live action. I don't care. Do it, Disney. Corran Horn. Make it happen.
Yeah, cornhole. Make it happen. Gentlemen.
What's a corn horn?
I think it's a cornhole. It's a derogatory term for a game that rednecks play. No, I'm just kidding. Gentlemen, I think we can all collectively say we don't like this movie.
Are we going to rate it?
I'm thinking about moving away from the ratings, gentlemen.
I don't think we need to rate this movie.
I don't think we do either, honestly.
Well, that's good, because I would award it no points.
10.
And may God have mercy on your soul. Perfect.
What you just said was innate rambling. Oh my God! See, the puppy.
And we are all dumber for having watched
it. Yes.
Oh, now I want to watch that movie.
I feel really good about this discussion, gentlemen. I feel like I could have made a joke just then, but it would have been super inappropriate, so I'm not going to do it. Family-friendly show. All right, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in, gentlemen, so thank you so much for coming on and making this a fun discussion. I had a blast. I hope you did too. Let's go around the room. Y'all know where you can find me. I talk about it all the time. Check out the links down below for all the different stuff we do. But Ethan, where can people find you?
At Ethan Maestri on the Twitters, at Andromeda Pod. Ryan and I are getting back on the horse tonight. I just texted him. He's up for it. The next episode of Drive Back the Night, an Andromeda Series podcast, is going to get recorded and put up on our andromedaseries.podbean.com website in the coming days. So check us out there.
And there you have it. Caleb, where can people find you?
At DuckMcDuck11 on Twitter.
That's why it's called murder and not muckduck.
Mm-hmm.
Rex, where can people find you? You're muted, my guy.
Sorry, guys. At Rex90 on Twitter. That's WRECKS.
Like
90.
get Rex 90'd.
Get Rex, yeah.
Yeah. And Ryan Dalton, where can people find you?
Sorry, I'm still laughing at the murder, not muckduck. At Ryan Dalton on Twitter, Ryan Dalton on Instagram, and my book, This Last Adventure, comes out on February 1st and is available at your favorite bookstore, pretty much everywhere.
There you have it. Continue to, we really appreciate anyone that supports our content. Definitely continue to check us out. We would really, really appreciate it. There's a lot of stuff we do here, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm really enjoying it, gentlemen. Thank you for making this a fun discussion again. And say goodbye.
Adios.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Well, once again, thank you so much for showing up today. I really, really appreciate it. Again, if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. I know that's the thing that all the YouTubers do. Everyone's asking to sub. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, and who knows, you might even see a video every now and then that you actually like or may be interested in. Not only that, I do a bunch of stuff, so make sure you check all the information down in the description down below. We got podcasts, we got Let's Plays, we got all kinds of stuff for all kinds of fandoms. So make sure you check that out. I would seriously, seriously appreciate it, and I would love to see you around here more. I am Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic.